A lunch to remember, not only for us to remember, but also a lunch specifically to remember Glencoe Village, its preservation, and how it became what it is today. Daily Dose of Darryl, Viewer's Digest, June 13th through the 19th, 2022, all 7 days in one video. Remember to open the information section, scan down till you see the different days, click on it to fast forward to that day. Remember we have QR codes, not only for the channel, but also for the website. A lunch gathering to preserve more than the village, but to preserve its preservation. Glencoe Village and Museum. Introductions. Who's gathering for lunch?
Jerry, Nall, and George. And of course, Jerry told George what to do, and he did it. And we have a museum today.
You people seem to understand that.
Wayne Drumheller is with us, and Wayne is doing a super job. Just thrilled to death to have him, because the museum itself is just a collection of items. It's what we make of that story that's important. He's doing a writing shop for people to get them interested in the museum as a subject for writings and then publications. Was it 3 years now with the coloring contest? And you had 300 entries this year? Wonderful. He's got Brian Baker. Brian is county manager.
I am interim assistant county manager.
Assistant county manager,
Yes.
but well, we have an acting county manager.
We do. We have an interim county manager.
Okay, so but Brian is heavily involved in that. Brian, we appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule with budgets and everything else to come and join us today. Rebecca has joined us, and she is our only paid staff person, with John Gus, employee on loan from Alamance County. John is managing the museum, and Rebecca is his only paid assistant. Vivian is a volunteer,
yes.
And she's been with us now for how long?
At least 6 months now, I believe. Yeah. Somewhere around there.
But I understand you're going to be leaving us to go back to school in September, I think?
Yes, I'm going to grad school for museum studies, so
Okay.
Outsourcing some schoolwork to come back and use it here. So.
All right. Well, great. So we're going to spend a few minutes today, and darrylpeebles is with us. He's been so involved in the community in a variety of ways, and he puts videos together and shows them as YouTubes online. So he has been out before to film with the duck exhibit that we had and all that, and he came over and did a video of me at one point. So I asked him if he would be willing to come today, and he so graciously said he would. So
Monday, learning the story of Glencoe Village.
but we had tried to do something with the village, and Preservation North Carolina came in, and they immediately decided to see if they could put water and sewer out to the museum. They had to bring it down that hill, down 62, across the bridge, and then over to the museum. And that's fine for water, but you got to run sewer, and that doesn't go uphill too well. So they had to put a pump station in. But the city of Burlington, the county, and everybody got together that needed to, and they made it happen. And we have water and sewer in the village now, which is great. We've got power out there, electric power. And so Jerry helped to identify the need for a museum. And in 2002, we purchased that building from Preservation North Carolina for $45,000. And Jerry and I went in together on that and donated it to the museum. So from there, the cleanup started, and Jerry and Kathy did the work with George to make it what it is today and set that up.
Well, I thank all of you for what you've done over the years. It's been a composite of so many people that have brought this thing to where it is at this point in time. I found in my years of being a school teacher and school principal, it takes a lot of people working together to make things work, and particularly when they work well. Jerry and I always had a desire to want to restore an old house. And I had plenty of experience in building because my father was a Baptist minister, and the church was built onto 13 times. But he had this marvelous ability to see, okay, we can build this far, depression times we're talking about. We can build this far, and then when I get ready to extend, I can just add on and not tear down. And it was an amazing thing that happened over those years, and it was also amazing part of the work that I had to do. It wasn't necessarily on my own volition, but I am thankful for all those experiences that I got. Which leads me to say that after I retired from being a school principal for 32 years, Jerry and I had always wanted to restore a nice old home. Well, we had passed the greenhouse, whole greenhouse as we know it, on a number of occasions. And it had come to the point that you couldn't see it from the road. And so we decided, though, that we would like to see if we could make some contacts. I knew Louise Wilson at the courthouse, began to find some things. And long story short, we built, we bought the house. And that house actually was kind of a building block to lead us to what happened in reference to the museum. Because with that and through that, and with our work in collaboration with the Preservation North Carolina, it was just pulling together all of us to gradually lead to the purchase of the museum. The number of people that have worked with the museum over the years, it is amazing. And I give credit to this lady right here. She kept after it. She kept pushing me, as has been stated, but I didn't have to be pushed too much. We did a lot of events at the whole greenhouse, and we raised a lot of interest, and it was a kind of thing that I think with sometimes 250 or maybe 300 people at some of our parties, it created a lot of interest. And so all these things together have led to, what might I say, so many volunteers. Even Vivian is one of our latest, and volunteers are so important. I see Mary Archer here. Mary, I'm so glad you were able to come and make it to the shindig. But that sort of gives a little background as to how it is that we have come to the point where we are. But the key to this whole thing has been the continuity that's been established through a interest that was developed 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 4 by 4, 8 by 8. It was just that growth process. And I think it was neat that we had the 140th celebration of the mill, opening of the mill, 20th of the museum, and I hope that this is just a start of what can be, because it takes people like I'm surrounded by right now, and if we don't have those kinds of people, it can't go. When I came there, and Jerry came there, I saw what was a good footprint. Had I not had a tremendous amount of original building experience prior to, I would have just said no, can't do it, can't be done. My son came over and he looked through it, and he told me, he said, "Dad, I always knew I'd know. I'm gonna have to have you committee." When we started that process, but that was probably the biggest hurdle one hurdle. And once we got past that, we began to really move things with and through Preservation, North Carolina. And the further it went, the more Jerry got involved in that process. That was a huge challenge. It was big. Well, I think in these kinds of things, it takes a huge amount of cooperation. There has to be continuous involvement, not only from the private sector, but otherwise. I think that we've got to create a kind of attitude and fervor among people that will allow them to provide finances, which is always critical to it. We have to have people who remember that unless you get a hold of something and seize the opportunity when it is available, and not only that, but as you seize that opportunity, they have to understand, and you have to have good cutting-edge leadership to understand what can come over a period of time. And it's you got to know that alphabet backwards and forwards. You got to know that if it begins with A, it ends with Z, and so it's Z, Y, X, W, V, U, T, S, R, Q, P, O, N, M, L, K, J, H, G, F, E, D, C, B, A. And so it just sort of, you got to try to do the kinds of things, get the kind of people, continue with the kind of finance, and people have to sell what it is, and then in time, those people will sell it to others. The beauty of the Glencoe Village is that it's basically it's a one-off. If you look at the village, you have the water, to the dam, to the head race, to the mill, to the dynamo plant, to the tail race, to the existing buildings that are right there that most places do not have, including the store, the office, and the houses, and more importantly, they're in their original condition. I mean, the good thing about having an entity like Preservation North Carolina is that when you go into a village like Glencoe, you have to stay with the covenants of what it is they will allow you to do or not do. And that has been a good thing. And so I do not know of another place that has what Glencoe has. And so you're selling something that, where's there another? Yes, there are a lot of houses still around, even here in Alamance County, where the hosts were so important for so many years. But there's no complete village except Glencoe.
Tuesday, some time with Kathy Baker, now in California.
Hey, Kathy. Oh, things are going so great. I wish you could have been here, but it has been wonderful. You would have enjoyed it so much. A lot of history here, and you're involved in a lot of this history, too. Had it not been for you, I don't know what we would have done.
Well, you're a great leader. It's wonderful. I just enjoyed working with you so much.
Kathy, you are the one. All those days, all those times, all that encouragement you offered so many times with Jerry, and I just can't begin to put in words what it means to have had a person like you. We were just discussing the kinds of things that it has taken and what enlivens us about the Glencoe Village, and without you, hey, I don't even know where it would be.
So you're enjoying California?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
That's great.
No, it's really good, but I miss my friends.
Oh, I
Especially
know.
George and Jerry.
I know.
We had a wonderful thing going.
And we miss you very much. We're up to 4,000 visitors per year into the museum, and so things are going along pretty well. We're carrying on the tradition, and just wanting to thank you today for what you did in helping Jerry to get this established. So thank you.
It was my pleasure.
We-
I enjoyed every bit of it.
Hello, Kathy. Good to see you. And
Good to see you.
I want to say thank you so much for helping with the museum for so many years. You and George and Jerry and Sam. It's been wonderful to have you keep the museum going all these years. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, but I appreciate all you did also, Mary. It
Well-
was wonderful how you just got in there, did whatever we asked you to. It was wonderful.
Well, thank you. And please say hello to your great family for us.
I will indeed.
All right. Thank
Is
you.
how's
And
Fred today?
Fred says congratulations and thank you as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody?
It's nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you.
Well,
So-
I've heard the same about
And
you.
hopefully I can keep it going for you.
All right. I even heard you got COVID, but came back really rare.
Yep, I did. So I'm doing well. So
Excellent.
And she's
I
a good.
appreciate you joining the group.
joining the band here.
This is Vivian. She is a volunteer.
Nice to
Hi,
meet
Vivian.
you.
Nice to meet you.
So Vivian's been with us 6 months, and she'll be staying through September, where she's going back to school. But
Are you an intern?
I'm a volunteer, and then I'm gonna go to Chicago to study museum studies, and learn more about that for grad school, and hopefully come on back and continue your good work here.
Oh, I'd love that. That's what we need. A good museum professional.
I can
Okay.
certainly try my best.
well, thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Nice to meet you, Vivian. And good luck with your studies.
Thank you so much. I'll make sure to tell you about it when I talk to you next.
Hey, Kathy. Boy, we've spent a lot of time together as the museum has grown and grown and grown. And I know we have been to see you one time and we've talked to you again. We're talking to you again. And we do thank you. And Kathy has been an awesome part in the museum. In fact, I could not have done without it, I don't think.
Well, we certainly were a good team.
Yeah,
Yes.
we were.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Did the best we could. And now look what it is. It's a great museum. You know, I had a suggestion. Sam, you can take this to the board and see what they think. If we had a mug, if you had a mug from these going fabric factories, maybe they would sell. Like Glen Raven, of course, that's what came to my mind first. A mug that said Glen Raven in 125 years at least. It's like a compliment that these companies have been in Burlington for so long and still with us, hopefully.
Yeah.
I would certainly buy one. I think everything that has to do with the textiles beginning in Burlington is right here. You've got the factory, you've got the setting, which is in the woods. Then you have all these homes that the workers were living in, and you've got the great history from the superintendent's house, as now a part of the museum, and you've got the county supporting. You got the river, you got the water power element. So living, working, playing in the village, everything is there, and it's so pleasant. There's no traffic. You can walk the village. Gosh, it's a wonderful cultural situation. great to visit, and good people too, to meet. What more can you want?
When we would go out there and you would drive through that village and the houses were all but falling down. Trees through the roof, bushes out in the front yard. You couldn't even see some of those houses. The road on the back was so rough it was washed out. It wasn't any pavement on it. It was all dirt, and it had washed over the years to a point where it was uneven.
Wednesday, Sarah Rhyne, a key dreamer in this process.
Sarah so wanted that mill to be preserved. She didn't know whether a museum was possible, but she was very much interested in preserving that for the future. And she got Howard Coble, congressman in Washington, D.C., from Greensboro, to come in and tried to get money. We ended up not getting any money, as I remember, from the federal government. But until Preservation North Carolina came in, there wasn't much done. But when Preservation North Carolina came in, they said, we'd like to acquire the property and then do a controlled development out there where the houses would be renovated according to a plan and guidelines. So we needed to acquire the property, and Preservation North Carolina said they could only pay a certain amount for it. So Sarah Ryan gave her half of that property to Preservation North Carolina, and the Green family owned the rest of it, and they sold it for about $280,000, if I remember correctly. And so Preservation North Carolina was able to acquire it, and that's what got things moving. And then later, Jerry called me and she said, you know that mill store out there, Preservation North Carolina is willing to sell that. And I thought, oh my gosh, what would that cost? I was thinking $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, but she said no, it could be acquired for about $45,000. And that was a cost that was reasonable. And so we went ahead with that. And other people bought houses in the mill itself and all the outbuildings. It's been a slow development, but we're making great strides. And I think in the last 2 or 3 years, what I've seen is the mill village has really come into its own. Some of the outbuildings are now being used, with the chairman's retreat out there by the cutting board, and the center there for the children, the development of all those houses and the activities that are going on in the Quonset hut and the storage building. There's a lot of activity out there now. And when we think about what is the value of Glencoe, we have something now that's very unique. There's not another mill village like that in the country, as far as we know, where you've got the mill itself and you've got the houses in the village, and it's set off, and it's not in a busy shopping center. It's in a beautiful setting. We've got the 2 water tanks still standing. It's really, really something special. So we have an opportunity here to continue that. And so George and Jerry have challenged us with the keeping this going. And Kathy wanted to see it go. And we've got support from the county, Rhyne. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We don't know where we can go with it yet, but we've got a great board of directors and a lot of support, and we're moving ahead.
Thursday, community, sacrifice, transitions. Let's look at it.
I want to talk about that, but the part of the museum that is most inspiring to me is not really the textiles. Interested in that, interested in what we interpret there. But for me, it's about a way to recognize the lives and the sacrifices of the people who live there and the people who came before us, so that we don't have to endure the hardships and the lives that they had to endure. And just seeing the village as a whole, as it is, gives you an incredible picture of what life was like and what they had to do, and how hard it was. And the reason they did that was to get by, and also so that their kids wouldn't have to. And that shared sacrifice is an inspiration to me. And it's the same reason that I keep coming back to Glencoe, because the work that George and Jerry have done there is of the same character. It's shared sacrifice that they have taken on willingly to make their community a better place. And they're inspirational to me just in my work and in my personal life. If I can emulate that if I can care enough about the place that I live to make the kind of sacrifices that you guys have made, to make this community a better place, I'll have done something good. So thank you for everything that you've done out there. When I started here in 2008, I was hired to start the Haw River Trail. In theory, that nobody knew what that was supposed to be, but it was supposed to be a hiking trail and a paddle trail, and it was very early days, and almost everybody involved thought it was kind of a bad idea. And it was really hard to convince people to get on board for this theory. And the first people that were willing to do that were George and Jerry. So they were the first landowners that were willing to give their property to the county to be a part of the Haw River Trail. And we've got 45 miles of paddle trail and about 30 miles of land trail in 15 years since that. But you guys started that because you were the first ones willing to make that donation, willing to go out there with a tractor and dig around in the mud with me to make that place into a park. And that's been the beginning of so many other good things.
When you look down the Haw River, from the northern part of Alamance County all the way down to Saxapahaw, there's very little right there on the river. Glencoe offers an opportunity for us to maybe have a restaurant or snack bar or a place for people to stay. They can take their boats out just above the dam there and then portage around and put it back in below the dam and continue on their trip. So it's an important junction there in the river, and that's just another part of it. But when you put everything together, there's quite a bit associated with the mill to attract attention and make life here for our citizens better. And Mary's with us today, and
I've enjoyed it. It's been great working with George and Jerry and with you, and just trying to keep the museum rolling along.
And of course, Fred is not with us today, but we just think so much of what he has done.
Thank you.
And going through all the records. When that mill closed in 1954, they sort of walked out and shut the door and left a whole treasure trove of letters and journals and magazines and newspapers. They just had everything in there. It's like they just walked out, and we had all that. So Fred went through all that, and he's gotten it now to the point where we have visitors that come in and say, well, I had an ancestor or a cousin that worked here back in 1915, and we can go downstairs and find pay records for that individual and information, their employment record and so forth. So that's been really inspiring for a lot of people that have come through to visit. Well, we have a wonderful story to tell, and it's more than just textiles. It's about the industry and industrialization of the area as we converted from an agri economy to having businesses here. The textile business led the way in that. And so we went through a transition. A lot of our people left the farm and started working not only at Glencoe but all other textile mills throughout the county. And then as that textile industry began to wane, we have then gone out into just a whole variety of businesses and created opportunity for people to support their families and make a living in a whole variety of ways. And the textiles led the way in that. So it's an interesting story. And when you travel around the country, we've gotten to a point where communities are becoming sanitized. They all look the same. You drive through, they've got a nice highway, a Walmart, a McDonald's, big box stores, and you can go from one community to another, and there's just not much difference. So when you say we live in Alamance County and somebody asks you, well, what does that mean? What is Alamance County? We have to look back at our past, to the people that created this county and made it what it is. The textile industry is a big part of that. And so what we're doing here is to create an icon, if you will, for Alamance County, something that people can say, okay, there's our background. We can go see it and we can appreciate it. And I think that that's really important to continue to make it available.
I think of growing up as a kid, and I'm the senior of the seniors here. Basically, the people that I knew, if they were fortunate enough, they had a mill job. Agriculture was big, as you mentioned, and but those people impacted my life substantially. I lived across the street from the school, next door to the church, grew up around all the people, and we enjoyed one another. But there was a sharing in that community that was unbelievable. When one didn't have, another saw, and they helped to take and make sure that nobody went hungry. I saw people who worked hard, who grew their gardens, and who had their fun, their enjoyment with a womanless wedding at the school, which was a big event, or something similar. You had these great events that you came up with. And then when I saw the bond in the community, and of course the war came along, and you saw how the closeness that was so important became important, particularly when your next door neighbor, catty corner across the street, you get word that he's just been killed in action, and you hear all those things, but how people came together there to help that family, and how they came together to help the family, period. How we saw the meal teams. Gracious me, we had a Graber team over there. I don't know how good they were. It was just good to be out and be at a ball game. But those people influenced me, quite frankly, in the way that eventually I thought, well, I can be a part of something here to restore this whole greenhouse. And then where did it lead to? It led to other things. And that's the way things have their impetus. They get started and keep going. And of course, this chick right here has helped to keep me going. And I can never say how much. You know what, baby? I'm crazy about you. You know that, don't you? But yeah, it's sort of interesting the way life develops, and how these influences come, and how you see those tough lives that people had in the mill. But yeah, they had a job and they were happy about it. Many of the others didn't, and not so much so. But to help to restore anything as important as the whole greenhouse and have a part in the village. It's just something that kind of flowed in our life, and I will always be appreciative of the people that I grew up with and the things they did for me.
You know, you started out by saying when people needed, they helped each other. At the mill, it was a community of people living together. They all knew each other, they all worked together, they helped each other out, and when they had needs, they were there for each other. And, you know, it seems from what I've heard, it was a pretty good lifestyle.
I think anytime you got a roof over your head, it's a good lifestyle.
Yeah.
Well, it's, you know, you got to look back beyond the textile mill industry, and you got to look at the time of the American Civil War and the movement forward. And that's what I explained to a lot of people in the museum is we have no idea how devastating the American Civil War was unless you really study it. We don't study it today. These were the early Americans. When the war came to an end, the textile mills are what revived the South, basically saved the South. And it's not just the textile mills, but it's all the industries that are intertwined with it. Your railroads, your steel. Yeah, I mean, in every situation, there's always good and bad, and the good certainly outweighed the bad living and working in a textile mill village, because it's fun to have these people come back and talk about their relatives or their ancestors who lived in Glencoe, and this can go for, you know, there are thousands of textile mills across America. So the stories are basically the same, but they're all tied together because of that, because of those similar stories. But it brought people from isolated farms into a community, you know, through the baseball teams and the bands that were created and the quilting parties and the Sunday afternoon picnics in front of the church, all those types of things. So, and not to mention, I mean, the ultimate is all the fabrics that have been produced over time that have gone literally around the world. I mean, it's fun that we still have Jerry Brown coming back to the museum regularly, and his socks, you know, they probably made several trips around the world. No telling who's put them on their feet, where they've walked. So, and kind of summing up what Sam was asking about, yeah, life was tough, and at times it was painful. A lot of injuries in these mills, but we have to think about the rebuilding of America after the Civil War and what this has done for all of our communities to give us what we've got now. I mean, we've got life easy compared to what those folks had back then, and I'm so thankful that I didn't know my path was going to take me to this museum, but I'm so glad that George and Jerry did all the hard work. Kind of another interesting point too was years ago when I worked for the state of North Carolina in historic sites, we were looking for adding another historic site to the state system. And I can remember coming out when our director had said, okay, y'all scour the countryside and see where we can grab up another historic site. I actually came over and had a conversation with Jerry. This was long before I knew I was coming working for the Alamance Parks Department, but we had started that conversation. Unfortunately, we're talking about 2008, I believe it was, 2009, when the recession hit. State had no money to put out there, so unfortunately there was no opportunity to try and make that connection and potentially make the Textile Heritage Museum a state historic site. It's continuing to work out, and the museum continues to pick up momentum. I can't see where we've had any backward steps. More publicity, more volunteers, other opportunities to celebrate. I mean, we just celebrated the 140th anniversary of the mill itself. Not many places get a chance to do that. This is the only textile museum in the South that we know of.
A number of people out there that didn't know until now that this is where they need to put some of their money, and we'll do the best we can with it. But seriously, many people do not know, and then they hear and say, well, maybe I need to become a contributing part of that. And that is a part of what it takes to keep things going.
Friday, a special place of learning now.
When people come out to the museum and visit with us, what do you see that they're most interested in?
A lot of people are finding it very interesting that they didn't know how clothing was made. That, you know, fabric itself has to be made somewhere. We had a group of students that were from a school in Durham, and they had several little of the Asian kids, and they didn't quite understand what the cotton was. And I had to explain it to them that in Asia you've got the silk farms, and you have this little bug that makes the little pods, and they take the pods and weave that into the material and stuff, the silk. And they understood that, and I said, then I reached over and grabbed a piece of the cotton that was in the barrel there, and I said, well, we grow ours in the ground, and we have to go out and pluck it out and then show it. I said, it goes from this to the shirt you're wearing, the material that you're wearing, that they make it into that, and then another company comes in and cuts it out and makes the shirt. And the younger kids find it very fascinating that that's how, you know, textiles work. You know, a lot of people, it's just like, oh, you go to the store to get your clothes. I'm like, I guess the store fairy makes the clothes for them. But they have no concept that it has to be made first. Fabric has to be made first to do it. And then that's what was done there. And then when you can show them actual swatches of the material that were made there, then they're like, okay, this is really cool. You know, they look at things a little bit differently. You know, you've got to get people to understand that this is here, and we're still making clothes with looms like they did. We just modernized them and keep it going.
Well, Vivian, we need to get you to just come in a little bit. But you've been there with us now for 6 months. What advice would you have for us? What do you think's important?
I mean, I think that y'all have set a rock solid foundation, and right now I think the thing that people want to see and that they enjoy seeing is the stories of people and learning about the past and the heritage. I mean, half of the people that come to the museum are Alamance County natives that didn't even know it was there. And the kids that come in, like Rebecca was saying, they're excited to learn about how fabric's made and learning kind of about history and just even the science behind textiles and things like that. So just keep on doing what you're doing. I mean, it doesn't need to be fancy and modernized necessarily. I think that because it's not, it has a charm to it that you don't see a lot nowadays, and it makes it feel more authentic and more in the times, and it makes a connection of the history of the buildings and the people that lived there with the people that are here now. You know, when people come in and you tell them this is the general store, you know, these are the original floorboards, the office is, you know, it's original carpet and saves and lighting fixtures and things like that. People look at that and they can imagine themselves and, you know, imagine people being there and really getting into it. And I feel like that kind of immersion is something that, you know, exhibits that are, you know, more man-made is something that's irreplaceable, and it's something special that we really have. So, you know, continuing to share and spread that story and getting more outreach is the most advice that I can have. And already it's such a tight-knit community that's just made me feel really welcome. You know, I've learned so much from all of you guys, from the archives and the exhibits themselves. So I think that what you have is something very special and unique, and it's making me even more excited to continue my education about it.
Right.
Saturday, find ways to share this story.
Wayne Drumheller has really been involved with us for a while, along with Mary, and quite a few books that have been published. And Wayne, I think that if you would just share a little bit about how you feel your tie has, how you got involved, sort of the things that you're doing.
I think you got a marvelous kind of living time capsule at Glencoe, at the textile mill, the company store, the Richard Hill Duck room. You got this living time capsule where characters and people have come in like a story, a story in a book. And anybody can kind of open up the book and read it like a book for the first time and read about the significant people, the people of meaning and purpose who come along, starting in 1880, the progress there, and then kind of the revitalization and really kind of bringing it all to life with Jerry and George and Sam and Kathy Berry, that they revitalized it, and it's like this time capsule got opened up again. And it's still open, and we can all take a peek in it. And to me, it's a great forecast what you're doing today and everybody's been doing for the future. I see the future is very bright. It's like an open door that once people come out to Glencoe and see what it is, number one, they always say, I've never been here before, but I'm glad I've come, and maybe I'll come back again. So I think there's great hope for the future of what you're doing, and I hope you keep this time capsule open and don't bury it anywhere, so that people will know who you are, what you are, and how they can play a part. So thank you for all you do. Well, as a photojournalist, writer, and publisher, it's been a delight for me to work with Mary and see George, be able to publish George's book about the preservation, the restoration of Glencoe, and then to work with the board and different folks to do the interviews where we really took a good look at the future. What was the future? And they came up with recommendations. And then as of late, to be able to sit down with the grandson of Richard Hill Duck, who was the domestic servant, the gardener, and the cook for Mr. Robert Holt, and have him bring out his very historic story and his tie-in with the tribal lands and the Okefenokee is just given a whole new dimension to the museum. And for me, it's been a pleasure being able to write about something really interesting and talk to people that are really interesting and have a great story to tell. So, thank you very much.
Sunday. Wrap it all up, George Nall.
These are the critical points, in my opinion. Probably not to the awareness of most people in Brooklyn, maybe very few. There was an attempt to start a museum back in the 80s. A lot of work was put into it. It gradually fell by the wayside, but not after quite a bit of work from lots of mill owners and lots of local businessmen. Our interest mainly came in the situation when we purchased the whole greenhouse. And that's where a gentleman came into play that was important and has been important ever since. His name is Dr. Sam Powell. Sam encouraged us as we worked on the whole greenhouse. And then as we moved forward in our coordination of efforts with Preservation North Carolina, Sam Powell was right there with that. Additionally, Sam Powell has an intense interest in history. Interestingly enough, although we have in prior information submitted that there are key people who made the thing go, namely my wife, Kathy Berry, and others. You have to have people who are the sustainers. Sam Powell has been one of those guys. He has helped us from the very beginning. As a matter of fact, he was the MC of the very first meeting that we had at the mill. And that was an interesting start, where we had people from Alamance County and beyond where he was involved. Additionally, Sam has worked with us from the very start to the end. He has been what I would call a sustainer. He has done those kinds of things that help us to keep the machine rolling. Alamance County could have lost very easily this museum, which it currently has, had it not been for key people, and Sam Powell was one of those. So I just, even to this day, you have to have someone that sustains. Jerry and I do not have the strength that we had. We are interested and we do what we can, but Sam is a key individual right now. As a matter of fact, he is chairman of the museum board and extends his efforts in countless ways. Who could say enough about Sam Powell? He has been, continues to be the man, and if the museum is to continue, it will take people like Sam, and then those who will follow him, and those that can see the importance of what we have here in Alamance County. We have a one-off, and it is something that we should cherish, and it's going to take leadership from lots of people, but specifically people like Sam who come along and help us as he has and as he continues to help. Thank you so much for all you do.
This is darrylpeebles, the man behind the microphone, bringing you something positive, personal, and professional every day from the People's Motivation Bureau. All three divisions, digital, real life, and print divisions, available for you now. We have locally ordered books. Contact me directly for signing and delivery. This particular book is helping a lot of people in their journey of growth. Group discounts for local churches, special gift for pastors. I appreciate you, your ideas and support. Keep them coming. I do many other areas. Check this list out. These are my contact points. This is Daily Dose of Darryl. We are responding to the free and gracious gift of God. I'm using humor, the art of illusion, modern technology, and decades of serving God and communities to work every day to uncover the beauty in all people and experiences coming my way, endeavoring to educate, entertain, and inspire. Each dose on this channel can help move us toward a better, healthier, and more informed mind, body, and spirit. I'm excited to be a small part of the expanding of our capacity to learn, love, and forgive, and together leave this world a better place for all. God bless you.